I walked into this thing and it looked like some sort of, you know, Halloween scary room kind of thing with all this stuff dangling down.
At some point, you've got to stop planning and just start cutting. Well, today's that day. We're cutting holes in a perfectly good van for windows, vents, air conditioners, the whole deal. This blank metal box is finally starting to feel like a home.
Hey, there we go.
Welcome back to Mike's Van Build Podcast. I'm Jerem with Van Life Outfitters, and we're following every step of Mike's professional van conversion. So far, we've talked about the planning, the gear, and the layout. But today's episode marks the first major physical transformation. We're talking about cutting into the van. Air conditioning, plumbing, wiring, you name it. If you're enjoying the ride so far, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Now, let's get to that conversation with Mike. Mike, hello again.
Yes. Hello, Jerem.
I'm really excited to talk about cutting your van into pieces. So let's get to the obvious question. How many holes do you think? How many did they have to cut?
Let's see. Air conditioner, fan, window, heater, plumbing, wake speed. So probably as many as 10.
Wow.
They're like
Okay,
Swiss cheese.
not everyone has to cut that many, but whoever it is, the moment of having to cut the van
Yeah.
seems like a major hurdle for people. Now, you obviously had Site 7, they were building it for you, so you weren't
Yeah.
physically cutting, but you knew this brand new, beautiful van was about to be cut up. Does that bother you, or you're used to it because you've had so many vans? How did it feel when you knew they were going
It
to cut
would
it?
bother me if they called and said, well, we're going to add a window slightly different than what you wanted. No, these guys have been doing this for years. So I had all the confidence in the world. Also, the vans are kind of, the panel vans are structured to where there's a defined area where a certain window can go. So in that sense, it's a little more reassuring. But I didn't want to be the one, they say measure twice, cut once. I still wouldn't trust myself, even though I've cut windows in houses and trim around houses and all kinds of stuff. The idea of drilling 4 corners and then connecting it all with a saw was I did not want to do it.
A lot of people seem to feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear you say, even though you've been in construction, cutting into a van is still nerve-wracking for you. What is it that makes it different for you and other people?
It's a $70,000 tin can, and when you're cutting into wood, if you screw it up, I could just pull that piece of plywood off and stick another one up there, or cut it into 2x4. Once you cut the wrong hole in your van, it's not going to be pretty. So, and then beyond cutting it, then you need to, get rid of the burrs around the edges. You need to prime it, sand it, paint it. So it's definitely quite a process. And, there's different ribs in the van. And these guys, this is what they do. It's like there's certain things, as I said in one of the other videos, I'm comfortable doing certain things. Other things I can dream them up. And if there's someone else who that's what they do, knock yourself out, Give me some windows.
So speaking of windows, when you were counting, you said windows. And in a past episode, you talked about how many windows you had. Yeah. A lot of people, when they're building a van, they wonder, how many windows should I get? How did you approach that question?
I like natural light. And like I said, there are certain spots in a van that you can see where a window would go. I want one in the slider. I wanted one behind the driver's seat. That's normally where a lot of people put a kitchen. Now, some people don't put windows there. They want to have shelves on the wall or more cabinets. Like I said, I just really need natural light. The other thing is ventilation. If I can open the windows, I can get a cross breeze. So maybe I don't need to run the air conditioner all the time. The back door didn't have windows. I like to be able to look out the back, through my rear view mirror, which my van coincidentally didn't have a rear view mirror when I bought it because it didn't have windows in the back. So then I had to buy a rear view mirror to mount to the front, which fortunately they make one that just clicks right in there. I can back up using my side mirrors, but I also like to look out the window. When I'm driving down the highway, I want to see who's behind me, that kind of stuff. So the back doors, and then I put the flares on the side so I could sleep east to west. And again, they're perfect for windows right at your head. They slide open. One's an awning, so it can be open when it rains. Ventilation. I like light. I like air, and those were just the go-to spots for a window. Uh, I'm less stealth. We talked about that once in one of the episodes. Some people don't want any windows because they don't want people peering in. They want it to look like it's a work van or something. It's obvious mine's a camper van, so I've gone that far. I don't care. I'm seldom going to park somewhere where I'm fearing I'm going to get a knock on the window because I'm illegally parked. And if I do, I can say, "Oh, I just stopped. I'm getting a drink and I'm leaving." So
I've been told if you van life it long enough, you're going to get the knock.
yeah, yeah, it's that's par for course, and it's getting a little harder these days to go to places. I mean, I remember traveling up the coast of California in 2013, 2014. You could just pull off and camp beachside. Actually, in 89, when I was out seeing the Grateful Dead, there was a whole section of beach called Freebie Beach, and you could just pitch a tent, park your camper. It was amazing. Now, no overnight camping, no overnight camping. So it's definitely become more tricky to be stealth, even in a stealth vehicle. you know?
So you may not know the answer to this question, but if you want windows or a window and you want to be stealth, is there a best location for a window that's the most stealthy?
Well, probably your back doors, because that's a common spot and again, it depends on the kind of van. But you don't have to do a big window. I did large windows. You could do a couple small windows like I have on the flares. But again, nowadays, unless you've got, you know, Mike's Electrical on the side or Bob's Bug Spray or U-Haul, and you're parked overnight somewhere, you're probably camping, especially if it's in a ski area parking lot or a Cracker Barrel or Walmart. you know.
So how did this process go? We know from past episodes that your builder's in a different city than you, so you're not there like every day.
Right. Right.
How did it? You dropped off the van. Did they cut
Mhm.
holes that day? Were you there when they were cutting it?
No,
Tell
no,
us a
they
little bit
they
about
were.
that.
Yeah, yeah. They were still completing some other projects. So they have a number of projects, and they have priority of project. This is in this stage. This is in this stage. When they completed that final one, mine was going to get kind of pushed into the mix. And the first part of that process is to do the cutting. So yeah, so I think it was maybe 10 days, a couple weeks after I dropped the van off. And again, I told them, I'm in no rush. I didn't give them, I need this back in 6 weeks kind of thing. I said, sooner you get it done, the better. But so they kept in touch with me and they said, hey, your van's moved up on the line. We're getting ready to cut holes. I said, oh boy. I said, measure twice, cut once. Uh, and sure enough, they cut a whole bunch of holes in the van and they sent me some pictures. And I think maybe 3 days later, I decided to drive over and just to check in and see how they're doing. And
How did it feel showing up and there's holes all up in your van?
it was wild. I was like, yeah, okay. Again, I had seen the pictures, but to actually go and stand in the van and be able to and again, I had Willow, so I knew kind of how it was going to feel with the windows, but to see it completely empty and just, relatively sharp metal edges and, yeah, it was definitely cool to see. And again, I said, God, I'm glad I didn't do that. you know?
Um, so a lot of our audience is going to be building their own van. Do you have
Yeah.
any tips or tricks to help these DIY builders feel confident in actually making the cut?
There's some great videos online. No, again, the whole just take your time. As a former home builder, again, it's a little easier if you put a wall in the wrong place, you can take it down. If you sheathe over a window opening, you can cut it open. Um, but Yeah, really take your time. If you have templates, mark it out, tape it, pencil it out, whatever you need to do, and then you know, fasten your seatbelt, kind of thing.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is if you're a DIY builder, you're right to be nervous. You really have to get it right.
Yeah,
And it's not the hardest thing to do, but you got to measure maybe 8 times
yeah,
and
yeah.
use some marking tape, some masking tape, whatever it is, and make sure you got it right.
Right, and then once you do the cut, you gotta clean up all the little metal shavings so you don't get, rust build up because you left some shavings. And again, you need to prime and paint and prep the window, the opening, so when you're ready to actually, get out the tube of sealant to begin to attach the window, there's definitely a process that, or whether you're dropping in an AC or a max air fan, that's it. And the other thing, when I showed up to see the van, they had already begun the electrical. So there's wires hanging down everywhere. I'm like, holy crap, what are you guys doing? I thought I was going to just have an outlet here and to connect the fan up there. And in coming from a home building perspective, the electrician drills some holes through the 2x4. They run one cable through and it goes to a box or to an outlet. I walked into this thing and it looked like some sort of, you know, Halloween scary room kind of thing with all this stuff dangling down. And they had it all taped and marked and stuff. I was like, okay, this goes to the air conditioner. This is going to run over here. So it really is quite a process. And I've had a number of people call and said, yeah, well, my friend's an electrician. He's going to help me with the install. It is a little bit different to do a van electrical install than it is a home electrical install. You're using different types of wire, different components, you're plugging things together. And so again, that's where I felt really comfortable knowing that Site 7 has a guy that's technically savvy with electrical. And, he pulled it all up on his laptop and showed me this and showed me that. And then I could actually see it because I walked around the van. Now I see where the hot water heater is going to go. And oh, I see you've taken the seat off. That's where my heater's going to go. And you need to cut a hole in the floor to run your exhaust and your air intake. And so again, I was seeing these things on videos, and to actually see it in person was, oh, okay. Now it makes even more sense now. I'm glad I didn't do it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the differences between electrical in your house versus a van. That's part of the reason we've got staff at Van Life Outfitters who have a ton of experience
Yeah,
with van specific electrical systems, an
yeah,
electrical engineer on staff, a guy who's a automotive engineer, somebody
yeah,
who's built over 100 vans, on the technical support team. So
yeah.
we're ready and able to help whenever any of you want to call.
And
We talked.
interestingly enough, let me just interject real quick.
Yeah,
When Site 7 was doing another build for another customer, they had bought some electrical stuff from us, and one of the components wasn't functioning properly. And their installer was struggling to diagnose what the issue was. They called us, and one of our electrical techs got on the phone with them. They got it completely dialed in. And again, so my level of confidence in them, at least even being willing to reach out to us, uh, made me feel great because I know if they were struggling a little, I'd rather them not sort of BS it and fudge it and get it done right the first time. So it
nice.
was nice to know that Van Life Van Life Outfitters supports some of these top builders in the country. So
We talked a lot about the sides of the van with the windows. The roof is a big deal when you're cutting holes
mhm,
too. Tell us about some of those holes and the decisions you made for the air conditioner, the
yeah,
fan,
yeah.
etc.
And I think we kind of touched on that in one of the earlier episodes in terms of placement of I put the fan over the bed and the air conditioner as you come in the doorway. Both of those units can use a 14 by 14 opening. Uh, excuse me. They do come with different size templates, but for the most part, if I put a max air fan in the back of the van and I decided down the road I wanted to put an AC there, fortunately I could do an easy swap out. So for me, again, the fan over the bed, circulation is important in a van. especially in the winter. In my Volkswagen van, I had no vents, no nothing, and it was too cold to open the windows. So I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have to scrape frost off the inside of my windows just from breathing all night, the condensation. So to have a fan that either draws air in or allows air to escape. The other piece with the windows, cross ventilation, front and back, so the air just moving throughout the van. And then, like I said, it allows me not to have to necessarily run an air conditioner for 6 hours. I can run it for a couple hours, cool the van down, and then rely on ventilation through windows and the fan to continue to keep the van at a comfortable temperature.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of vans with windows on one side, and
Hmm.
I can imagine that having both sides open would make a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, I like it, and I don't really see. It's not like I'm going to put artwork on the walls or paintings or pictures. So I like using the wall space as a space to get really beautiful sunlight.
If you're camping in beautiful places, then
That's
the
it.
window is the
That's
picture.
it. That's it. Yep. Exactly.
You also said something on the pre-call about how air conditioners work with ventilation that maybe not everyone in the audience might know about. Can you mention that again?
Well, utilizing the warm air in the van, and circulating it through the system and then creating of course, the cold air coming out. And again, my hope is not to have to rely on the AC, but in those times that I really want to maybe be able to work comfortably or, eat my sandwich on my bed while watching a movie, I'm going to run it for a couple of hours. Fortunately, the Mabru that I went with, part of the reason I went with that RV 12,000. It's really quiet. I think at like 30 decibels. So it's not like you're sitting next to your window unit at your house. It's just you hear the fan going a little. Max fan, same thing. I don't even know it's on at night if I have it set on like 20 or 10, just enough to feel the air move. And if I needed to crank it up to 6 because I burn some popcorn or, cooked garlic in the van, I could extract the air by cranking the fan on, So it's nice when they have like dual purposes or multi purposes to keep the whole experience comfortable.
Do you burn popcorn a lot, Mike?
No, no. Years ago, I went to a big gathering and chiggers were an issue because we were out in the woods and in meadows.
uh,
And it was suggested that you eat burnt popcorn because somehow when that got in your system, the chiggers jumped ship or something like
really? I wish we had a fact checker on. We could.
that. Yeah. I think it was some old crazy hippie thing that they were selling, go burn your popcorn.
Back to the AC and the fan. I have seen people wonder if they need both.
Yeah.
And what I've heard from what you've been saying is not only does the AC take a lot more energy,
Mhm.
so it makes sense to have a fan for that option,
Sure.
but the AC also is not helping get air out of the van,
Correct.
and that's a big deal. So if you're going to go with one, it seems like you really need a fan
Yeah, I
first.
mean, yeah. And the only reason why you wouldn't do both is if you want to have more room on the roof because you want to put solar panels up
Right.
there. And that's what I did with my first build. I had just the fan and I had a lot more solar. And as we
Now you
discussed
got a
earlier,
secondary alternator
there we
and an
go.
AC.
I'm selling the alternators.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So,
So it also seems, so I haven't gone through the process that you're going through with professional builder, but it seems like seeing the holes in the van it might be the first time that you can start seeing your vision come to life because everything's been on paper before, right? Is there does it feel that way or is it too early to get that sense of, hey, this is a real house that I'm building here?
it was a little early, so I went back again a short time later, and they had the metal frames of where the cabinets were going to be, the lower cabinets, and I think they had the water tank in and the hot water heater. It wasn't necessarily connected yet, so that's when I really began to get a visual, and I was like, "Oh,
That's our
nice,
next episode.
yeah, yeah."
All right. So the holes in the van and the wires all over is just Halloween. It's not, it's not, this feels like a real house yet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, you stand in there and again, Willow had very similar window setup. So, but these windows now we're going to have slightly different openings, so I could keep them open when it rained. The canopy windows that open like this, as opposed to a slider with the screen. So I knew that was going to be nice. And then when I did go back, they actually had the glass in, and I was like, there we go.
Nice. Yeah.
Now it's starting to feel like, what I'm envisioning this van to be like.
I've seen a lot of vans with windows that don't open. You've already talked about the fact that yours open,
Yeah.
but that is a question people deal with, and I've lived in a lot of hot states. Every
Mhm.
window should open, in my
I think
opinion.
so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you can find the window that you like that's not fixed and has some sort of screen, I would by all means go with that choice.
yeah. And in an earlier episode, you mentioned you much prefer that they open at an angle out, so that they're blocking rain. Am I
Right.
remembering that right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then the other thing is you can get aftermarket screen doors for the slider, for the back, for the front windows when they come down. And that's another thing that I invested in, knowing that, I do have the luxury of the AC, but I'm also a fresh air person too, So if I can have a nice breeze coming in, I'll go with that. Yeah.
Nice. Let's move to the lessons learned section. Obviously, you've talked about some of these along the way, but summarize for us. What are some key takeaways that you think the audience should know at the cutting holes stage of the build?
Make sure you got a sharp blade in your saw if you're going to do it yourself. Uh, you know, uh, Again, these are lessons that I learned from a house build perspective, as well as from watching other videos. It's kind of cool to look at YouTube and watch people cut holes in. Make sure you have paint, a primer, a file. I remember watching a video or something Zach had done years ago where he put cardboard under where he was cutting. So as he cut, the metal shavings landed in a bag or on a piece of cardboard. So it was less cleanup after. And of course, just being committed to where you want to put those windows, committed to where you want to put the heater. Because once you put a hole in the floor, I suppose it's easier to patch a hole in the floor than it would be on the side of your van. So really have a defined plan that you're going to stick to, mark it all out. And then you can always cover up the Sharpie if you decide you don't want that window there, or you don't want to put the air. I'm going to put the air conditioner to the back. Well, fortunately, if it's a 14 by 14 opening, you're good to go. But if it's something different, then I don't know about melding a steel plate up on my roof, kind of thing, to cover up an unexpected hole. And then just knowing where things are going to go. And that's all part of your layout and your design and your vision, and what is going to allow you to feel most comfortable because it's your home, so make it nice.
Great. Mike, thanks again. Another episode down, and I love hearing your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. Thanks, Jerem. See you next time.
Great. In the next episode, we talk about how Mike is customizing the van for his unique life, working with the Site 7 team on custom cabinets, a fantastic bed design, and a whole lot more. Thanks for listening to episode 5 of Mike's Van Build Podcast. Photos, links, and product info from this episode are all up at vanlifeoutfitters.com/podcast. Subscribe, tell a friend, and stay tuned for more build stories. I'm Jerem with Van Life Outfitters. We'll see you in episode 6.